Hello, people of the internet. This is Kaiju Noir. Here with me once again is Pete.
Hey guys.
And here's our review for Monsters University, the prequel to the Pixar animated film Monsters Incorporated, which just so happens to be my absolute favorite of the Pixar films right after the Toy Story trilogy.
Gotcha.
Going into this, you and I were pretty huge Pixar Disney fans, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really excited for the movie. I didn't think that Monsters Inc. really needed a prequel. If anything, like me and my friends discussed, we would have preferred a sequel, but a prequel was nice to see if we had to see something.
Definitely. If there's one thing I really wanted out of the first movie was to explore more of the monster world that that the characters that Mike and Sully live in. And it's kind of funny how when it comes to Pixar films, everyone has been asking for a sequel to The Incredibles. Yet they make Cars 2, they make Monsters University, they're making Finding Nemo 2, called Finding Dory, I believe.
Yeah, and now they're gonna make Planes, which, although it might not be a Pixar film, still,
It's connected. It's basically Cars 3.
It's in the Cars universe.
Yeah.
It's part of the Cars universe.
But I'm glad that, if they're gonna make a sequel to any sequel/prequel to any of the Pixar films that isn't Incredibles, I'm glad they chose Monsters Inc. So, let's get into the story, shall we? So the movie begins with Mike Wazowski, the one-eyed, fast-talking, green little short monster that we all remember, played once again by Billy Crystal. We see him as a elementary school student who's on a field trip to Monsters Incorporated. He becomes inspired to become a scarer himself. And so we cut to years later, where he is now attending Monsters University, trying to get enrolled in the Scare program. Unfortunately, he, as well as James P. Sullivan, played once again by John Goodman, were unable to pass their exams. Sully cannot do it because he did not study, while Mike, he did all the studying. However, he is not a very scary monster. So in order for the two of them to get back into the Scare program, they get involved in the Scare Games, which is a competition between a whole bunch of sororities and fraternities. So unfortunately for Mike and Sully, they get in, the only fraternity that accepts them are the Uzma Kappas, which are like the losers.
The misfits, the nerds, the wannabes, the underdogs who will rise up and win the day.
So, yes, of course. So now the movie is about Mike and Sully having to put aside their differences and motivate their team to win the competition so that they can get back to following their dreams of becoming scarers. So, once again, this is another plot where a group of misfits have to get together to win a competition in order to achieve their dreams, just like what we saw a couple weeks ago.
What was that movie called?
The Internship, which at this point is a movie that pretty much everyone has completely forgot, except for us, because we were the only ones who watched it.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You have a Disney version of The Internship by Monsters Inc. Who's going to want to watch that instead? It's kid-friendly, you can do so much more with animation, so much, it's just all around fun.
However, despite it being a very cliched story, I found myself very surprised by the third act of the film, where it goes into a very deep and emotional, it becomes a very deep and emotional drama, sort of.
Yeah.
Which is what I've always liked about the Pixar films. They always know how to get emotional and how to get in touch with its audience.
Well, not just that, but the movie, what it manages to do with the two characters, it brings up two problems that you see in human life and with kids of our age, or people that are growing up. You have the kid that was raised with everything, and now he thinks he can get away with everything. He was raised to believe he was the best. And his dad's the best, so he doesn't really have to try. All he has to do is coast by his father's fame, and he'll be fine. And it doesn't work for him. It doesn't work that way in the film. It doesn't work that way in real life.
And as for Mike, he's the one who has to work to get where he is, and unfortunately, he is at a complete disadvantage, mostly due to his background, or in this case, due to his physical appearance. So I really enjoyed that they explored that aspect,
Right.
trying to translating human dramas when it comes to education and bringing it over into this film.
What I also liked was how it wasn't just one sided. You know, like in a typical movie, you see like usually the jock or the big guy. He's usually the rival of the movie. You usually don't see them working together. I know it's you do see them oftentimes, but they're neither of them are rewarded for what they do. At the same, they have to work together to get something better in their life. You know.
Exactly. In the first Monsters Incorporated, we've seen Mike and Sully as this inseparable duo who are pretty much the best at what they do. They they are incomplete without the other. Here we see how that started. Why is it that they are so good at what they do when they are together?
Right. And again, that it basically patches it up. You know, you can see that they really work off one another. You can see, you know, why they're rivals, why at first they don't like each other, and you can see the little pieces of them, you know, just starting to get along, liking each other, and eventually becoming best friends.
And of course, the actors Billy Crystal and John Goodman, they do an excellent job reprising their roles from the first movie. I was actually pretty surprised that they were able to do so, considering the fact that they are almost 10 years older, yet playing younger characters.
That's true. When did the first Monsters Inc. come out?
I believe it was like 2001. I want to say 2001, although I could be wrong. Okay, after a quick check, I found out that it was indeed Monsters Incorporated did indeed come out in 2001. So 12 years ago. God damn. 12 years ago since I clearly remember watching that movie in the theater. I think that was 12 years ago.
Yeah, it has been a good long while, and the characters still feel like themselves. Like you do see, you know, the growth that makes them become who they are in the later movie. But yeah, you really see, you know, the actors. Like you still see them. They just really reprise the roles. You know, you could see them in that role again. I'm glad that I'm able to see them. But they don't try to do something extremely different. I really don't.
Or more of the same.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically what they did was they took a very familiar storyline and was able to infuse it with fresh material thanks to excellent writing and excellent characters portrayed by excellent actors.
How do you feel about the lack of a real villain or of like a real bad situation?
Well, I noticed that several Pixar films do not really have an omnipresent conflict that they must that the protagonists need to overcome. Like with WALL-E, half the movie is just WALL-E and Eve building a relationship until the final act, where we have this last minute villain. And then you look at Ratatouille; it's mostly about these two, the rat and Linguini, learning to work together in order to achieve their goals. So while there wasn't a real conflict, there were several mini conflicts that was able to keep the story strong in my opinion.
I liked it. Like I didn't feel like there was a need for a villain, and I feel like the way they did it was right. There was no need for a villain. The whole time I was expecting the Dean, a certain character in the movie that's really creepy and really tall and scary,
Played by Helen Mirren.
I thought she was going to be the villain. And
Same here.
And because she really seems like she's omnipresent, big, evil potential, but no. And I think they really worked out really well. I think they had the urge to possibly make her a villain, but no. And I think that worked out in their favor. Definitely.
I think that she, comparing this to The Internship, she pretty much played that role of the authority figure that you want to see Mike and Sully impress at the end.
Yeah, and of course it's a Pixar movie, happy movie. They do.
As for when it comes to connections between this movie and Monsters Inc., I was happily surprised that they didn't go overboard with references to the first movie. They would have some characters do certain things like they did in the first movie. You even have some characters appear from the first movie appear in this movie, but it's never too much. It's never like in your face. For instance, we have Steve Buscemi coming back as Randall Boggs, the chameleon creature. who was a rival, a scare rival of Sully's. And he's here. You learned how they met and why Randall hates Sully and Mike so much. But he's not that big of important of a character. He's just there in the background.
Right, and they focus on different antagonists because no one's really a villain in this movie, like we said.
Well, basically, you had that rival fraternity. They're pretty much like the stereotypical jocks who are very successful because of their because they were lucky enough to have been born as scary monsters, aka been born from like a really rich family. If this was like a real life human sort
Real
of
situation.
yeah.
What did you think about the diversity with all like the different creatures, different monsters? You know, did you feel like they were able to explore or expand on the monsters that have already been introduced in the universe?
I believe so because, like I said from the beginning, I want to see more of this universe, and I was really I was really excited to see all these different creatures and all their unique designs. Although I did notice that several of them had shared the same features as one another. You had a lot of them with like the same kinds of tentacles. You had a lot of them with the same type of one-eyed heads, or the same kind of arms, or the same kind of bat wings. It's very interchangeable. There are certain traits that are very interchangeable among them.
Just like a feature here and on a different body is a feature there. They just mix them up, like you said.
Right. Although every now and then you have characters with truly unique designs.
Those would be the main characters, though.
Exactly, such as the characters that are in the fraternity that Mike and Sully join. When it comes to the new characters, such as Terry, or Scott, or Jeff, they're all pretty interesting. They're all very likable, very enjoyable. Not especially deep characters, but I think that can be excusable considering that the main focus is Mike and Sully.
Yeah, and like I said, the movie does well emphasizing on them. It's all about how they became friends. You know, what made them become friends, and while those guys are there along for the ride, like you said, it's mostly about Mike and Sully.
Although I do have to say, my favorite new character in this movie has to be Art. He is awesome.
Well, was he a philosophy major and totally zen with everything?
Yeah, he is definitely like that stoner, but they don't flat out say he's a stoner, though he's obviously one. He still, every word of dialogue from that dude, he is I don't know, just pure comedic gold.
Funny and not too funny or like over the top where it gets to the point like, oh my god, I'm tired of you, just stop. It doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, none of the humor is like that at all, really.
Now, obviously we're talking about the things we like. What didn't you like about the movie, if there was really anything major?
Let's see. It's really hard to look for something bad about this film for me. Well, I guess the easiest thing I can point out are the rival the rival fraternity, mostly because they're not really all that fleshed out. And I mean, they're basically like the rich jocks who are there to bully the outcasts. Another thing I just remembered was that in the beginning of the movie, it is stated that Mike, the character of Mike Wazowski, has always had trouble fitting in with other kids. I mean, he was considered an outcast, yet we are never told or shown exactly why he is an outcast in the first place. What is it about him in particular that many of his classmates wish to avoid?
Well, I think it all goes back to the fact that he's not a scarer. He no kids. I mean, it doesn't really make sense because none of the kids are really scary looking either. But maybe in their universe, scary is everything. It really is. I mean, being a scarer is like being a rock star in their universe. Being a scarer is everything to them. If you're not a scarer, you're a nobody.
Exactly. Like in the movie, the dean basically says, if you're not a scarer, there's no point to you being a monster.
Actually, one thing I like about the dean is she is being mean. She is necessarily mean in the sense she's a dean.
She's very strict.
Yeah, she's very strict. But what she says is the honest truth. She's being brutally honest. And I kind of like her for that. Like, I don't think she's a terrible, a mean person. But I think she's really being honest.
Straightforward and to the point.
Yeah, she's not being mean for the sake of being mean. And when she said that she really wasn't angry, for a certain situation that they got in, I kind of believed it, because she was judging all the students accordingly, and she did mention in the very beginning that if they didn't pass their exams, they were going to be out. You know, so in a sense, like I feel like there's a lot of truth behind her. That's just how how I felt about her.
So, what was something that you did not like about the movie?
There wasn't anything I really didn't like. The biggest nitpick is it's a very it's not nothing like it's nothing amazing. It's nothing like grabbing like it's Pixar, you know. But it's a very safe story. You know, the underdogs going up, rising up, and while they do a little twerks here and there, I hate to say it, but when it comes to Pixar, you do expect something more out of just a basic story. I mean, yeah, we got Cars 2, which was, come on. I mean, it is definitely Monsters Inc. Monsters U is definitely like a big step from what Cars 2 was. But again, when I think Pixar, I think something big, something amazing, something new, something creative, and that's like really my only nitpick. They went for like a really safe but fun, exciting story. And nothing wrong with that, but it's Pixar, you know? That's just how I felt about that.
So, now that we've said everything we wanted to say, let's go on to the final ratings.
Personally, I give the movie 3.5 out of 5. It was a good movie, but like I said, it's a very safe movie. It's fun to watch. Go watch it. I watched it twice, and both times I found myself laughing. I enjoyed the characters, and I watched it like day 1, day 2. That's simple. So it's really fun to watch. Nothing amazing or incredible, but your kids will love it. You'll love it. So it's definitely a movie you want to see and buy on Blu-ray.
For me, I really highly enjoyed this movie to the point where I'm definitely going to watch this. I would definitely want to watch this movie whenever I can, whenever any chance I get. As you said before, the story is rather predictable. It's unoriginal. However, where I disagree is the last third act, where he goes into a direction that is pure, that is exactly what you would expect of Pixar. And it was that amount of quality in the writing and the acting and the setup and the payoff that is what really sold it for me. So with that, I'll give Monsters University a 5 out of 5.
Is there any other way?
So now that we've given our opinions, let's talk about the short film that came before Monsters University, which is The Blue Umbrella. What were your thoughts on this short, and what do you think of it? How would you compare it to other previous shorts?
Sure, it was decent. It wasn't anything, again, amazing, particularly. I really liked the opening start until it got to the actual umbrella part, unfortunately. I thought it was really creative, and I liked the music, and I liked the setting. And even then after the umbrella, the story wasn't too bad. It's a story of of love, basically, in that sense.
Right. Basically, you have this world where humans live in this world like we do, except every single inanimate object pretty much is alive
And out to help the blue umbrella.
Right. You have this living blue umbrella who is smitten by this pink umbrella, and the two owners, they separate, and so you have this blue umbrella trying to find the pink umbrella while the other living inanimate objects help him out as he gets into a very dangerous situation.
Personally, I felt like it would have been stronger if it really didn't go for the love story and went for more like, the umbrella trying to find its way back home. Or in that sense,
Exactly. I mean, they just did a love story with the Paper Man, which appeared at the beginning of last year's Wreck-It Ralph.
And same concept, you have inanimate objects, in this case paper, almost living paper, guiding the man to his love. And I got the same sense with this one. It was definitely, very artistic, very beautiful. The music was really good. I really liked it.
I agree with you on all of that, and I really like what they did with all the inanimate objects. They were really entertaining. They were more entertaining than the umbrellas themselves. Agreed.
And again, I would have preferred actually just a simple, story of finding his way home. He gets blown away by the wind. I don't know, I'm just trying to give my own ideas here because that's pretty cliche too. Finding your way home.
Home. Yes, but at least it's not as overused as one character trying to get reunited with a character that they love.
Met.
Yeah. I mean, just met, I'm okay with. Just that it's a romantic storyline. I think that's pretty much been done enough in short animated films.
If you get down on the point, it was really pretty. The music was wonderful. It was a good experience, but again, I would have expected something a little different, something a little more unique.
like the previous short that appeared at the beginning of Brave, which involved, the son and his dad and his grandfather all collecting stars on the moon, and you see all three generations of men interacting with each other and learning from one another. But back to the short film, The Blue Umbrella. I think it's an okay short film. It's decent. The atmosphere, the animation are really great, but the story is a little cliche. A little bit of been there and done that. It was an okay short. Not the best, but decent enough. So those were our thoughts for Monsters University, as well as the short film. We hope you've enjoyed it. So until next time, everybody, take care.
And we'll see you guys at the movies.